The most successful pirate in history wasn't Jack Sparrow. It was a woman who commanded 80,000 outlaws. While Blackbeard was fighting for his life against a single ship, she was busy defeating the navies of 3 world superpowers. And she did it all without ever losing a single battle. But who is she, and why has history tried to forget her? Imagine a fleet so large it blocks out the horizon. Not 10 ships, not 50, but over 1,500 vessels. At the height of the golden age of piracy in the West, legendary names like Sam Bellamy or Bartholomew Roberts were lucky to lead a few hundred men. But in the East, a mysterious figure rose from the absolute bottom of society to become the terror of the South China Sea. She didn't just steal gold. She governed. She created a code of laws so strict that breaking them meant instant execution. She taxed entire cities, ran her own justice system, and made the Emperor of China tremble at the mere mention of her red flag fleet. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're building a community of fact-finders here at Fun and Facts, and we want you on board for the journey. Now, let's go back to the year 1801. Our story begins not in a palace, but in a floating brothel in Canton. She was a humble worker, known then only as Zheng Yi. She had no power, no money, and no future. That was until she caught the eye of the most feared pirate of the era, Zheng Yi. But she wasn't just a captive or a bride. She was a strategist. She made a deal with Zheng Yi. She would only marry him if she was given 50% of his power and 50% of his loot. It was a partnership that would change the world. Together, they formed the Red Flag Fleet. But then, tragedy struck. A massive typhoon swept the coast, and Zheng Yi was killed. Usually, this is where a pirate empire crumbles. Men fight for power, and the fleet dissolves into chaos. But our mystery commander wasn't about to let that happen. Within weeks, she had secured the loyalty of the captains and took total control. She wasn't just a leader. She was a lawgiver. She knew that to manage 80,000 criminals, she needed an iron code. If a pirate gave an order that didn't come from her, he was beheaded on the spot. If a pirate stole from the common fund or raped a female captive, the penalty was death. But her laws were only the beginning. What truly separated her from every pirate who came before her was how she turned chaos into control. Most pirate fleets were temporary alliances, loose bands of criminals who scattered the moment things went wrong. Her fleet was different. It was organized like a military, structured like a government, and feared like an empire. Every ship had a clear hierarchy. Captains answered to squadron leaders. Squadron leaders answered directly to her. No confusion. No excuses. She divided her massive armada into color-coded divisions, red, black, white, blue, and yellow, each with its own commanders, ships, and territories. This system allowed her to control enormous areas of the South China Sea at the same time. Trade routes, fishing zones, and coastal towns all fell under her authority. Merchants quickly learned that paying her protection tax meant safe passage. Those who refused didn't get a second chance. Entire coastal communities became economically dependent on her rule. Fishermen paid fees to sail without fear. Towns that cooperated were shielded from rival pirates. Towns that resisted were made public examples. This wasn't mindless violence, it was calculated. Fear was a weapon, and she wielded it with precision. Captured enemies weren't always killed. Skilled sailors were often given a choice. Join the Red Flag Fleet or die. Many chose loyalty over death. Once inside her empire, escape was impossible. Anyone caught attempting to desert was executed publicly, often in front of the entire crew. The message was clear: there was no life outside her rule. What made her authority even more terrifying was that her laws applied to everyone equally. Veterans, officers, new recruits, it didn't matter. There were no favorites. Rank offered no protection. Discipline was absolute. She also built an intelligence network that rivaled governments. She placed informants in ports, markets, and even inside government offices. Officials who believed they were planning secret attacks soon discovered she already knew their moves. Information traveled faster through her fleet than through imperial channels. By the time enemy ships set sail, she was already waiting. Her strategy was meticulous. She tracked wind patterns, tides, and currents to plan ambushes. Her smaller, faster ships could appear out of nowhere, strike, and disappear before a larger ship could retaliate. Western powers were stunned. The British Royal Navy, which had crushed pirates across the Atlantic, suddenly faced an enemy they couldn't intimidate or overpower. Their ships were larger, but fewer. Her ships were smaller, faster, and everywhere. She avoided direct battles unless victory was guaranteed. Instead, she exhausted her enemies, ambushing isolated ships, cutting supply lines, and forcing them into unfamiliar waters. The Portuguese navy suffered the same humiliation. Cannons meant nothing when surrounded. Fireships failed when her crews calmly redirected them. Each defeat shattered morale. Sailors began to fear her name more than storms. What terrified governments most was not her violence, but her legitimacy. She issued commands that were obeyed. She enforced justice. In many regions, her authority was stronger than the Qing dynasties. People whispered that the emperor ruled the land, but Ching Shih ruled the sea. And perhaps most shocking of all, she achieved this power in a world where women were expected to obey, not command. Many officers refused to believe reports describing a woman leading tens of thousands of pirates. They assumed it was a myth, until they faced her fleet themselves. Even typhoons and storms, which would have destroyed a lesser fleet, were no match for her planning. She used weather patterns strategically, sometimes avoiding a storm, other times letting the storm scatter enemy ships. Her crews were trained to navigate through disasters, making her fleet nearly invincible. She ran drills, inspections, and fleet reviews to maintain discipline and morale. She understood psychology, motivating loyalty through fear and reward. This discipline made her fleet unstoppable. The Chinese Navy tried to stop her. She sank their ships and captured their admirals. The British Royal Navy and the Portuguese Navy joined forces to hunt her down. They trapped her in a bay for 8 days using fireships and heavy cannons. Did she surrender? No. She waited for the wind to change, used her own ships as shields, and broke through their line, destroying their pride and their vessels. She was so powerful that she essentially ran a state within a state. Most pirates end their lives at the end of a rope or at the bottom of the ocean, but she was different. In 1810, the Chinese government realized they could never defeat her. So they did something unthinkable. They offered her a deal. They offered her and her 80,000 pirates total amnesty. She got to keep all her riches. She was given a noble title. And she retired in peace to run a successful gambling house until she died at the age of 69. She is the only pirate in history to truly win the game. Her name, which should be known in every household from the US to the Philippines, was Ching Shih. Ching Shih rose from nothing to rule the waves, outsmarting emperors and admirals alike. It makes you wonder how many other legends have been buried by time? If you were an emperor and a pirate fleet of 1,500 ships showed up at your door, would you fight to the death? Or would you offer them a pardon like the Chinese government did? Subscribe and let me know your strategy in the comments below. I'll be reading and hearting the best answers.